Listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. Hello one, hello all. Welcome to another episode of this podcast in which we dive deep into the worlds of punk, hardcore, emo, metal, indie rock, whatever it is, as long as it is of the DIY variety. That is what we cover. And then we have discussions with people who are creating that, whether they're participating by playing in bands, putting out records, taking photographs, or just simply impacting the creative community outside of this music world. Because truthfully, that's where we all end up in some capacity. You know, you're not in a band for like 40, 50 years. I mean, some of us are lucky enough to do that, or maybe unlucky. I don't know. I guess that's probably depending on the day. But today I have a great discussion with a friend of the show. His name is Nick Brooks. He is the vocalist from It Dies Today, and he also is in a new hardcore band called Frozen Ground, which for anybody that knows where It Dies Today is from, they're from Buffalo. So clearly, the entire ground of that city is frozen because it's cold most of the time of the year, except in the summer where it's brutal. But Nick and I go way back. We spent a lot of time on the road together playing shows with my old band Taken. One of our most fond memories was a tour that we did together. It was Taken, It Dies Today, Between the Buried and Me, and Alexis on Fire. This was probably 2001, I want to say. And the tour was incredible. It was the dawn of package tours. Like there was, people did it at that time, so we weren't like inventing anything new. But it was still a relatively new idea, and we didn't know how this was going to go. And it was booked by a person who ended up being a friend of mine much later. But, this was also the infancy of the internet, so you really didn't know who are you communicating with. Like, yes, you'd maybe hop on a phone call here or there, but it was this person. Ed Edge was his name. We actually don't mention him in the interview because I don't know why in particular, but he plays triangle for Horse the Band. Fun fact. Long story short, this tour was booked by him across the country, and all of us, we were kind of like, I don't know, man. We'll see how this goes. And it was one of the best tours that we ever did. But besides all of that, It Dies Today is back. They have been playing a lot of cool shows. They're actually playing Warped Tour this summer. They're playing a lot of those rad, huge festivals, Louder Than Life, Rockville. They're also playing Hellfire, which if you're not familiar with, it is Trustkill putting together a Hellfest-like environment with the awesome label that is a newer label called Ephira. And they're playing that. And it's cool because it Dies Today, I always personally have enjoyed. I think they do the whole heavy, hardcore mosh thing extremely well. And I've wanted to have Nick on for a particular reason because I love him as a human. And I also think that growing up the way that he did in regards to just experiencing punk and hardcore from his perspective on his side of the world, and then also being like, just trying to navigate the world of being like, I like punk and hardcore. And like, do we do this full time? Like, do we wear makeup and tight jeans? Like all of these things that It Dies Today did without losing their credibility and what it is that they are trying to do. I mean, truthfully, some people never liked It Dies Today. Totally get it. That's completely fine. But I always found them to be honest to what they were trying to accomplish, which was having fun and moshing hard. So anyways, that is what's coming up. But you can support the show as always. Just drop an email, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. Love to receive feedback, guest ideas, whatever it is that's on your mind. Hit me. Also, leave a rating and review on the Apple Podcast page, or simply just leave a star rating on Spotify if you listen to it there. Publish the shows on YouTube. It is audio only. I don't have any plans on turning this into a video podcast just because I just think it changes the whole energy, So I don't have any desire to do that. But I still publish the episodes on YouTube for those of you that enjoy to listen/watch, or that's like your preferred podcast player, which is fine. I want to make it available to everybody everywhere. Also, let's talk about weekly recommendations. I love to do this section where I've been doing it for the better part of a year and a half or so, just dropping music new, old, everything in between, something that you should pay attention to in some capacity. I will have a link in the show notes to a Spotify playlist where I just keep adding week by week all the recommendations, and hopefully you find something new that you haven't listened to. I am going to give full credit to my 14-year-old son for getting me into this. And I know this sounds insane, but follow along here. Wings, Paul McCartney's band after the Beatles, they have a record called At the Speed of Sound. But specifically this song, Silly Love Song, completely took me and captivated me. My son has taken a huge dive into the Beatles and knows more facts than, frankly, I do about late 90s metalcore. But he has started to expand his breadth of Beatles knowledge into all of the solo records and all of the things that people have done. And anyways, this particular record and this song, he kept listening to over and over as he was just, listening to records in our living room. And I was like, this song is really good. Why have I never given Wings a try? And I think this is just speaking from my perspective. Many of us that grow up in like the punk and hardcore scene, like, yes, of course, we have like music that we got into as a child, whether it was on the radio or whether it was something that our parents got into. All of these things are influential. And I love the Beatles, but it was one of those things once I got into punk and hardcore, I kind of was just like, all right, well, my knowledge of the Beatles and their catalog kind of stops. I'm not going to do any deep dives here because, I have to know about, Torn Apart or whatever. But all joking aside, Wings is really good, guys. I don't know if you know that, but Paul McCartney, pretty good songwriter, which I know sounds so painfully obvious, but I would recommend this. Like, as you go throughout your life, as you go throughout your musical education, be able to be open to these things because you will be surprised whether it's someone, a friend, a family member, someone else that's influencing your music taste. Be open. And truthfully, that's what's been really, really fun for me, to be open to what my son is putting in my ears, where I'm just like, oh yeah, like, dude, I know Paul McCartney. But then listening to it, I'm like, do I know Paul McCartney? The answer is no. So anyways, the Wings record, At the Speed of Sound, but specifically Silly Love Song. Holy moly, that song is incredible. His wife, Linda, does some backing vocals on there, and there's this beautiful 3-part harmony at the end of the song that just, man, it hits. So who knew, guys? Paul McCartney. Anyways, let's talk to Nick Brooks from It Dies Today. They're playing shows. They're being active again. They got a lot of cool stuff coming up, so pay attention. And also his new band, Frozen Ground, who is really, really good from just the little snippets that we've heard of them. So let's talk to Nick right now. Just like many of us in the punk and hardcore scene, like, we can't actually remember like when we met because it was like, oh, dude, it was 20 years ago or whatever. But I do have a distinct memory of playing in upstate New York with you guys at some random VFW hall. And I was already aware of the band via the Life Sentence connection. But then once we met each other, and I was like, dude, not only are these guys awesome, but on top of it, they're like super fun to hang out with. And I was like, this is the exact combo that you want from, running into friends in the road or whatever, or meeting people for the first time. There's no question in there as of yet, but the question that I want to ask you is just the notion of these things that I know you yourself hold dear in regards to the relationships that you've been able to create through this dumb music that we have become obsessed with. What kind of resonates with you as you obviously like get older and, the relationships mean maybe a little something different than they did when you were, 16 years old?
Yeah. And honestly, so that's funny. You say we're 20 years like removed from that, and in my head, I came into this being like, I know when I met Ray for the first time, I'm pretty sure I was 16, but I think I met you in passing at Hellfest 2001.
That sounds very, very correct. I remember that. Yep.
Because I think Taken ended up coming back to, it wasn't Buffalo, it was Lockport, New York, and had a show with maybe Curl Up and Die.
Sounds right. Yeah.
So, and I remember going to that show afterwards, and we were friends with a couple of these Canadian guys uh, who like introduced us to you or something like that. So that was my recollection of meeting you. And plus, there was always like the Ontario, yeah, the label you guys were on was it Goodfellow?
That's correct. Yep.
Wow, really, really stretching out the
Deep,
brain today.
deep pull. Yeah.
So wow. Uh, but to answer your question, long-winded way of saying like, it's crazy to me that to be here talking to you today. It's crazy, like that's something that we started and had no idea what we were gonna get ourselves into. Like not just relationships, but like relationships that have spanned 20 plus years. So it's outside of the band too. I'm speaking, but like yeah, I'm still great friends with the guys in the band. We have more of like a working relationship, and now all have our own families and stuff. So the dynamic has certainly changed, but it's it's really overwhelming to think about at times. Like just to be playing shows at this age and like everyone running into people who they have a story to tell or I'll remember them from shows way back in the day and so on and so forth. And it's like you don't really miss a beat, which is interesting to me. And I think I don't know. I don't take any of that kind of thing for granted. It's to me it's just kind of crazy, but it's I think that's one of the more fulfilling aspects of it is like, we hadn't gone to California in I don't know how many years, and we're out there this past fall and just seeing all these different people that, what either I did know or I didn't, but they had a story to share, and it's really cool. And like my wife is very far removed from this world and like knew me like long after the band was done and all that. And so, it's fun like to see her kind of react to it. And I would say that's kind of what's changed is like like the most supportive human being on the planet and really, really cool. But like taking her on some of these trips we've been able to do, like Mayhem and Furnace Fest and different stuff like that. And it's, seeing her be like, what the hell is this? Like, who are you, dude? Like, so so that's always kind of fun. And that I think that to me is like, is great because she is so supportive and I'm not home a lot and I'm 40 and, it's like that Shane Gillis meme. Like, I think it's pretty cool, but, you don't have to, So, yeah, it's fun to see, you know, my wife like be like
Yeah.
that stoked on it too, and it's really cool. So
Yeah. And not to like completely put you on the spot, but something that has always resonated with me personally, just as far as not only who you are as a human, but like the earnestness that you have, truthfully, like from since I met you till now, like usually those threads don't get pulled together, especially with the style, whatever, like mosh metal, whatever you want to call it, dies today. Like there's always been that illusion of like, okay, obviously I need to be hard because I'm telling people to punch each other in the face or whatever, but like you've always, I don't know, there's a balance, and I understand that you guys were able to lean into that once you start to incorporate a little more melody into it, and like there's that aspect of it. But I know that has always been kind of you as a human, but like is that earnestness, or like basically just like who you are as a person, or that was something that started to happen once you had a little more perspective as you started to tour and kind of collect those experiences?
I'd be lying if I said I knew the answer to that. I honestly don't know. I think maybe that's just us. We're just, I mean, I like what I like, and that's, and I like a lot of different things. So it's, I think, we obviously made conscious decisions later on to, like you said, lean into the melodic side of things quite a bit more, especially on the second album. But even that, I feel like it didn't come from a place of like, let's go be the biggest band in the world. Cause I don't think we had any delusions that would be the end result. I thought, let's play stuff that, I don't know. At the time, we were really, really sick of um, just like beat down kind of stuff, and just get to the breakdown and like that. I don't know. After touring on the first album for as long as we did, we just kind of leaned into that. But to answer your question, I don't know. I just I like a lot of different stuff, man. I try to be honest and do my best to be a good person. Um, but other people might see it differently. But I just try to be kind and try to be accepting of whatever. But I get grumpy, and
Sure.
yeah, like anybody, especially on tour.
Sure,
So
sure. Of
but
course, of course.
yeah.
But I think that kind of dovetailing into that, it's like that heart in the sleeve nature, like of what you're talking about, not only, lyrically, but because I think on the surface, people could look at what It Dies Today, was, is now, whatever, look at any juncture of the band and be able to easily make fun of it if they don't know anything beyond just the surface level, where it's like, whatever, when you guys were, arguably the biggest you ever had been, where it was just like, oh, here's guys with, swoopy hair, dyed jeans, whatever, dyed jeans, no, dyed hair, tight jeans. That's what I meant.
Jeans might have been dyed too. We don't know.
We don't know.
Possible.
But like you guys were an easy target, but you didn't not only, like either let that affect you, but just kind of be like, well, yeah, we are heart, like we are who we are, to your point of just being like, good, bad, everything in between. Like, yeah, we are an emotional hardcore band, but we're really heavy too.
Yeah, it's funny thinking back to that. Like, even that stuff, like, I know there's been things that have been said, oh, you signed a trust kill, he made you do X, Y, and Z. Like, no, man. Like, Chris started wearing makeup and skinny jeans and all black, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. I might start doing that too. Let's see how this works out. And we did that for a few months and did it for like Ozfest, and then we're like, okay, I think we're done with that era, so let's move on. So it, like anything we do, is just because we feel like it, kind of thing. And that's always been the band, for good or for worse, or for better or for worse rather, because we've made so many mistakes. But it was because it was what we wanted to do, so that at the end of the day, I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, and plus, I mean, you were young growing up in, a small public eye, and no matter what, like, very few people look back in their, late teens, early 20s and are like, oh man, I'm proud of every decision I made there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's some of those promo pictures I think about, and just, we have like a digital frame that kind of just rotates through everything. So we'll all be sitting down for dinner, and like, unbeknownst to me, my wife will like upload like an old promo picture, and it'll just pop up. And my kids will be like, ew, Dad, what was wrong with you? Like, it was, it was
I can't
something.
take you back to 2006.
Yeah.
I can't explain it to you guys.
It was a heck of a time though. So
yeah. So putting the lens on you as a human being, were you actually born and raised in Buffalo? Like, these are simple biographical things I have no clue about.
Yeah. Yes, I was born in Kenmore, New York, which is Buffalo. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's North Buffalo. Yeah, born and raised. Spent some time. My dad lived in Southern California when I was like 12 to 14 or 15. And so I would spend some summers and stuff in Marina Del Rey, and spent some time out there. But yeah, for the most part, I always lived in Buffalo. Saw a lot of other places, but I don't know. I love Buffalo. So
yeah. And talk to me about your relationship with Buffalo, because I know it's like beyond Detroit, like the tortured town list, Buffalo is definitely, on the top 5, we'll say, maybe.
yeah.
But the people that come from there, regardless if you get into punk or hardcore or not, like there's a pride in being from Buffalo. Do you think it's because of that sort of, industry town nature, or is it just the, underdog aspect? Is it a combination of all those things? What's your take?
I think part of it is like the underdog thing for sure. you know, you grow up and like me personally, growing up as a kid, I saw the four Super Bowl losses, right? I saw how everybody, how it impacted, the adults around me. I carry that with me, but it's like, yeah, you're always an underdog, and the city has come a long way. I'll say that. Like, it's gone through like a rebirth of sorts in the last probably like 15 years or so. And sadly, I think we're on like the downturn of that. A lot of like our restaurant scene, our brewing, all sorts of stuff, our waterfront. Um, just there was so much development and so many great things happening. But like I said, some of that's kind of on the downturn. But um, yeah, I think it's hard to articulate, but I would just say if you're from here or if you've been here, like you kind of get it. And the people here, there's assholes everywhere, but the people here, I think generally are good-hearted, good-natured, and they call us the city of good neighbors, and I really do think that is the case. Like I can, you know, I don't know, I don't have an example, but it's just genuinely, or yeah, people here tend to look out for each other. And if you put Buffalo on and you're not from here and you say anything to anybody about Buffalo, you will have a lifetime fan. And if you're from here and likewise, like you go other places and you talk about, how great Buffalo is, well, chances are you're going to meet somebody who has some sort of connection to somebody that you know in Buffalo, because that's always the case, or a Bills fan or whatever. But like, I think Every Time I Die is the perfect example of that. Um, they always put Buffalo on, and I think there's a work ethic too, a thing associated with that, because that band worked their asses off. Um, but within the music scene anyway, like I think a lot, like any of the bands that come out of here and see success, it's a different. And Eat It, I think, again, was just the definition of this. Like their fan base was rabid, and especially at home, and that's why they could do things like have festivals once a year and sell out these huge venues, and because the people in Buffalo that love them will ride with them forever, no matter what they do. So it's I don't know. I think we're loyal underdogs. There we go. So
That's good. That's good.
yeah.
What was the family structure like as you were growing up? Like mom and dad in the house, brothers and sisters? Where did that whole thing look?
Yeah, my parents were together till I was about 12, and I had a sister. Or I have a sister. I was just hanging out with her yesterday. She was 2 years older than me. But yeah, my parents split up when I was about 12. My dad moved to Southern California, um, which was cool. A little scary going, like just flying by myself to SoCal as a 12-year-old, and um, he worked a lot, so it was like I was kind of left to my own devices, and was just like, I guess I'll walk around Marina Del Rey for a week or two.
Sure. Let me tell you some great things about rockabilly.com. First and foremost, use the promo code 100 words or less. That gets you 10% off of your entire order. And what makes that even better is that they have officially licensed merch from hardcore, metal, rock bands, hip hop, pop. I do not care what you are into. You will be able to find rad merch from any of those type of genres of music, whether it's Beatles, Black Sabbath, Alice in Chains, Slipknot, Green Day. They have so much cool stuff that you're just like, man, I'm going to spend at least an hour on their website. They ship it from the Midwest to the United States of America, and it can get to you very fast. They have been operating 30 plus years. They have over 500,000 items on their web store. And if you're like, I'm feeling adventurous, I'm going to go ahead and be like, you know what? I want some pet merch for my pup, or maybe I want some officially licensed sunglasses or skate decks. They have it all. And they also have really, really cool timed limited edition stuff. Like right now they have something from Atreyu, friends of the show. So go to rockabilly.com, use the promo code 100 words or less. That's the number 100 or less 10% off your order and go buy a bunch of merch.
Find yourself looking for a new job or change in career? Monster.com is here to help. We are not only here to bring you job postings, but also AI interview prep and salary tools, expert career advice, and top-notch resume services. We've got everything you need to land your perfect job fit. Discover the magic of finding the ideal job with Monster.com. Your future starts now. Visit Monster.com today. Your next job opportunity is just a click away.
You strike me as a person who, I mean, you've always obviously been into sports, but you seem like the type of guy that was, up for anything, like in school, as far as like groups of friends being like, oh yeah, sure, like I'll do that stupid thing, or like, oh, I'll do that like cool thing or whatever. Were you kind of a go with the flow person, or am I misreading that?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was definitely a couple different sides to me. I mean, depending on who you talk to, like speaking specifically with high school, I tended like I kind of was friends with everybody. Like I had friends that were, captain of the football team. I had friends who would go to hardcore shows. There weren't many of them, and I still see them today, like at shows and stuff like that. So, oops, sorry.
Oh, good.
All right, sorry about that. Yeah, something rebooted. But I don't know. I definitely was just a punk, like ass. Like I was just not. I wasn't great in school. I did terrible in school. I barely graduated. Um, by the time I think we started the band when I was a sophomore, and then I just used that as my opportunity to just not go to school as often as possible. Um, so it became an issue. But yeah, I barely graduated high school just based on my attendance, and I mean we were touring pretty heavily by my senior year, and so it was like spring break, winter break, by summer break, and miss the first day of school, like whatever the case is, I don't care. I want to do the band. That's fun, and so that's kind of how that went. But yeah, I know I had a lot of different friend groups. I'm pretty sure I was in like a school musical at one point in my life, but that was like eighth grade. It was pretty bad. I was terrible at acting, so that was short lived.
Sure.
But
were you playing sports as well?
Yeah. I did until like eighth or ninth grade. I tore my ACL, and that put the kibosh on sports for a little bit. And then, but I always played. I played basketball, football, baseball, lacrosse, pretty much everything. Until I got injured and got more into the band. So I was supposed to. The surgeries didn't work out that great, and like I hobble around now because of it. But I liked sports.
Sure.
So,
you were dabbling in a lot of things.
I was all over the place. So I liked it till I got hurt, and then just I didn't want to keep getting injured. So
no. Well, especially when you go through an injury like that even in your younger years, it takes you, like you said, surgeries or a long time of recovery, and you're like, you know what I don't want to do? That again. Like all that is terrible. So,
yeah, that was the worst. Like the physical therapy and recovery from that surgery, especially at the time. I mean, we're talking 26, 27 years ago. It was not great. Just a long recovery. So
I can only imagine. Yeah. And so how did the, kind of punk and hardcore scene reveal itself to you? Was it, like you said, there wasn't a lot of people in your peer group that maybe knew what was up? Were you just kind of discovering it, randomly through friends of friends, or how did it get shown to you?
I would say like early on, I have my first cousins there's four of them. There's two brothers, two sisters. But my, Meg and Beth, who are my cousins on that side, they showed me, like I remember my cousin Beth like made me this weird, just like goofy indie mixtape when I was really young, and I was like, this stuff is different than what I listen to, and it's really cool. And then my cousin Meg, I found out like as I started kind of getting more into it, but she got me into like like Snapcase, and I remember her going to like a quicksand show, and a bunch of different other bands that were like, everybody was kind of concerned about Meg during that period. I feel like maybe because like, but no, she got me into some of that stuff, and then just I and my male cousins on that side, they were always into like classic rock, some punk stuff. Rage Against the Machine, I was obsessed with. My cousin Johnny, same deal. So like, it was a good mix from them, and like I thought they were the coolest people in the world, and I still do. But so like taking their influence was kind of cool. And but then I got into I started getting into punk, like older punk, like Clash. I remember the first time I heard the Sex Pistols, I was like, I have to go and buy this, and I bought the CD, and that led me down kind of like the Fat Records, Epitaph era, and all that, and got into all that kind of punk. But going to those shows too, you hear some, like Snapcase was on Warped Tour back then, I remember, and being like, these guys are from Buffalo. That's sick. I'll check them out. And then that was my entry into like going to shows here, was kind of seeing them, um and then really just being like, this is insane.
Right.
When like, and loving it. So that and then from there, just I ended up meeting people who had were like-minded. They liked the Misfits. I liked the Misfits. They like skateboarding, and at the time I pretended to enjoy it. I was a terrible skateboarder. But
I love the there are so many of us. I will include myself in it because I, like you, loved skateboarding, but I was terrible. I could barely ollie, and you felt like such a deficiency. Like you were just like, "What's wrong with me? Like I can't even do this, but I love it."
The one thing, like, you just ollie is like, you can't even do, like, that's it. I still to this day can't. But we just ride around our skateboards, listen to music, and go to shows. And like, I had a core group of friends, and Chris was one of them, Chris Capelli from IDT, and then another friend of mine, Andrew, and we just hung out all the time, went to record stores, went to shows, and skated, and very poorly.
Yep.
But yeah, that was it. I was hooked.
I also think it's so cool when people like yourself are able to not only recognize the hometown heroes or what have you with Snapcase, and then you start to have like other auxiliary towns, your Syracuses, or like you were mentioning, the Southern Ontario. It's like when the world starts to open up in concentric circles where it's just like, oh, there's bands here. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Your brain starts to hurt. Like the concept of a tour, you're just like, this is great. Like this exists everywhere.
It's crazy. Yeah. And especially regionally up here. Well, I'll say this too, like, and then you like, from 3,000 miles away, kind of seeing what was happening in Southern California at the time. I was like, well, that's really cool. Those guys are the coolest on earth. And I was like, they don't look anything like the bands on the East Coast, or So yeah, it's definitely funny, but yeah, and just different pockets, like Connecticut. I've always been obsessed with Connecticut because, like, I mean, there's so many good bands, Hatebreed, Death Threat, 100 Demons, like those are, and like, I remember the first time I was playing Connecticut, I was like, oh, this is going to be insane.
Right.
I was like, that one, there's a story about the record release show for Satisfaction, like, oh, people are going to die. And it was pretty tame. It was like, there was like 5 people at the show, and it was not crazy.
Yeah.
We're not.
But yeah, you're like, we're not. Yeah, it's our first time through. Calm down. But I love it too, like what you're talking about, when you become obsessed with these little pockets of scenes, whether like 3,000 miles away from Southern California, and clearly, the Adamantium inspired band name, and just being like, it's so cool how all of that starts to influence you as a younger person, and then be like, I want to do some version of this. And then you're like, I'm just combining all this stuff I like into the thing that I'm trying to create, even though I'm doing a terrible job at it, but it's fine because I like adamantium and I want to play this style of music. This is cool.
Yep. Absolutely.
So with that, like you said, It Dies Today started playing when you were 16 years old. Did you, is It Dies Today ostensibly like your first band, or did you play in anything prior to that?
No, I was in some other bands prior to that.
I like the embarrassed. No, I played some other bands, but it's fine. We don't need to talk about those.
The band. So actually, myself, Chris, and Nick Maruso, who was our drummer for the majority of the band, we were in like a really, really bad hardcore band. That was just, it was Hatebreed. It was us ripping off Hatebreed and Buried Alive, but doing it really poorly. And singing about straight edge and stuff, and not everybody in the band was straight edge. And it was just kind of like, it was one of those things like, you just kind of like, if you can play and you're available and you show up, then like, great, you're in the band. And so like, yeah, I'm going to sing about being straight edge, even though half the band is far from it. So, so we did that for, I think, a year, and put out a demo. We won a battle of the bands, put out a demo, and
that's big.
Yeah.
Battle of the bands.
Yeah.
Those are important starters.
Yeah. So, we did that, and, the one dude from that band was like leaving for college. So I was like, he played guitar. So we were like, well, let's start something new. And so we started something after Hellfest 2001. I want to say we started IDT, and yeah. And I was in another band prior to that, which was even worse. But we're not going to get into.
No,
but I might have rapped a little bit in that.
Now we're talking,
bars,
Nick.
Dude.
Now we're talking.
Bars.
But I mean, anytime a person, starts something, especially when they're that young, like, I mean, you have no idea what you're doing. You're just playing with friends. It doesn't matter. And like, even if you have a conception of what you want to sound like, it never sounds like that. You're like, we're going to sound like, Strife meets VOD. And then it's just like, oh, I guess we sound like a bad garage band or whatever, like with me rapping over it. You have no idea.
Dude, I'm 40 and I still have that problem. I started Frozen Ground as like a kind of just a thing I wanted to do. And like, all right, well, the first conversation you're having with everybody is like, what are the influences? And they're like, yeah, that sounds dope. Let's do it. Do you have any music written? I was like, I had a song demoed, and then went and with our drummer John and Mike, Hadalac on guitar, went recorded with Hadalac, and sent it to Greg, who's playing bass now. He's like, yeah, this is really cool, but it doesn't sound anything like the bands you mentioned, like literally nothing. so yeah, still kind of
still trying.
Yeah.
You're like, I've got guitar and drums, but that's about it, dude.
Yeah.
Had you I mean, it sounds like you'd always sang in all of the things. Was that, I guess, relatively, I wouldn't say easy, but like, was that comfortable for you to step into that role? Or was it like, oh, Nick can't do anything else, so I guess he'll yell into a bass amp?
Yeah, no. Wow, that's spot on. No, I played guitar, but I was really self-conscious about it. Like, I'm not a guitar player. You know what I mean? Like, I play guitar, but I'm not a guitar player. I've like kind of peaked at a certain level, and I never really had an interest in playing that live, for any of the heavier bands I'm in. But yeah, I guess I don't know. I figured out I could scream. And, thanks to, all the new metal bands I loved in middle school, and like, figured that out at a pretty early age, played some talent shows, did a Pantera cover, for my one talent show. Yeah, dude.
Ooh, that's hard, man. I love that.
Just love. Ooh.
Were people looking at you being like, what does Nick do? Like, does people understand what you were trying to get across?
I don't know. That was my first taste of like, I'm doing this and people are responding positively to it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. We must have done okay. And
Totally.
and I remember people like seniors coming up to me from high school and being like, dude, that was pretty sick. And I was like, all right, let's explore this, So
Totally.
that was
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, I always was kind of the singer dude and figured out I could scream. So if it was something kind of like that, singing, not great at, but yeah.
You were able to figure that out. I mean, truthfully, I joke because obviously I sit in the same boat as you, where it's just like, oh, Ray's the only one that can't really play anything, so I guess it'll just yell into a bass amp. But like, it does take not only a certain type of personality, but like just that willingness to like be literally so naked up there and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna yell into this thing, and like that's not. So I mean, each band member obviously contributes in an important way, but so many people look at the, lead vocalist, or even if it's like a backup vocalist, and be like, I want nothing to do with that.
It's funny because like anybody who knows me will say to me like, I just don't believe you do that. You know what I mean? Like the I'm a pretty reserved dude and I like my privacy. I don't love being in crowds. I don't love being a social butterfly. I can be. I could turn that on if needed. But like generally speaking, like if you didn't know prior to meeting, like you would never have any idea that like, yeah, I'm leaving this weekend to go scream in front of people at 40 years old, So it's I hear that a lot, but it's I don't know. It came probably. I don't want to say it came easily. The act of doing it came easily. I think like I had no idea how to be like a front man. I think there's two different things. I think you can sing in a band, sure, but like I had no idea to how to like command a crowd, how to talk to people, and I remember I see like old videos of us, and I'm like, what the hell was I doing? Just like saying random crap and like. I don't know. So, and I think that part of that is like I was 16, 17 years old. So it was like I didn't have any clue and we weren't professional and whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. And so as you started to go down this path and, It Dies Today started to play shows, and obviously school was not something you were that interested in. How were your parents reacting to this, life of delinquency, of being like, what do you mean you're going to be in a band and you're barely graduating high school? Was there a lot of, turmoil within the house in regards to that? Or do people like, hey, I guess as long as Nick isn't being too crazy, then we'll be okay with it?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah. So my dad wasn't really in the picture so at that point. So, but my mom is a teacher for I don't know how many years, and so she didn't really love. To your point, what a delinquent I had become, and she was supportive of the music, but definitely didn't understand it. It like God forbid if one of my kids were to go down a similar path, like I would be supportive, but I don't know, man. Like if my kid was like, yeah, I'm screaming, and this is the music I'm playing, and this is all I'm into, I'd be like, geez, what have I done? But so I as a parent now, I can kind of understand the concern of like he's really pissed off about something, and you're not wrong, and so it created some tension, especially like later on as things started to pick up and like I just got home from being on tour for 2 weeks. Why, like I don't care what the school has to say to me, you know what I mean? Like I'm pretty self-sufficient, I'm good. And so yeah, I have some regret about that now, and like thinking back, like maybe but I I don't want to say I have regret, but it's like I definitely could have tried harder in school and probably could have been a better son and probably, but it is what it is. And, like, yeah, I mean, there were times I wasn't living at home during high school and so forth because just like I said, it created some friction. I wasn't the easiest person to live with at the time. So
I love vinyl. I love merch. I love t-shirts and long sleeves. And all of those things can be obtained by our friends at evilgreed.net. They have a very specific point of view on the type of bands that they work with. And if you listen to this show, they carry some of your favorite past guests' merch, whether it is a band like Brutus, who I haven't had the show, but I definitely have my sights set on them, or Knocked Loose, or Drain, or Botch. They have it all. And they also have limited edition colors of vinyl specifically for their store. They ship out of Berlin, Germany, but do not fret. Here in the United States, not only do they ship to you, but the shipping rates are very advantageous for us right now in the States. Trust me, you probably haven't gone to evilgreed.net, and your mind will be blown when you go there and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to buy like a little bit of everything, and then come back next month and buy a little bit more. I'm not kidding. I've ordered from them multiple times and I love what they do. So go to evilgreed.net and shop away. So kind of fast forwarding a little bit to the, once you guys started to rise in popularity and prominence, like there's so many things that start to, impact not only like the band's health, but like the way that you like are treating yourself as you're going on tour, 8 or 9 months out of the year. I know it's been well documented, obviously, like all of the, ups and downs that your band and obviously many other bands that kind of go through, what you guys have gone through. One question amidst that is when did you kind of personally recognize that you were, like receiving that sort of notoriety that you obviously didn't intend to capture, like maybe obviously in Buffalo, but like when, was it like the first couple tours you did where you started to recognize people outside of your sphere were paying attention to you? Do you have moments that kind of stand out?
Yeah, I it's funny. I had this conversation like literally yesterday, so it's kind of on the tip of my tongue here. I have a couple of different moments. I think that, and I've said this in probably every interview I've ever done, but that first tour, where it was us, you guys, Between the Buried and Me, Alexis on Fire, was unbelievable. And we struggled a lot because I don't think any of us were getting paid particularly well and at all. And I know we had like van issues once we got to California, and it was a mess, but that was probably like one of the most incredible summers of my life. That first show at Showcase of that tour was, to me, that was a benchmark for us because, you see, VHS tapes of shows at Showcase Theater and all these other bands who have played there before. And then fast forward to it's sold out. There's kids jumping off the merch section. This is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. We made more money on merch tonight than we have ever in the history of the band. And it was just like, okay, that to me was like a clear benchmark. Like, all right, we're on to something, maybe. Like we're doing something okay. And the second moment was after Hellfest 2004, and it was, so we had signed with Trustkill. The album was done, but it wasn't out yet. And I think we were one of the earlier bands that day, but it just, I don't know, man. Like, I started the band with Chris because we wanted to be on Hellfest. And like, that was an initial goal. Like, whatever we do, we want to play Hellfest. And so that was like really emotional, like for me personally, because it was like we've been busting our butts for, the last few years, and we're finally here. We're in this moment. Granted, it's in New Jersey, not Syracuse, but I digress. But it was like, I remember just being like really emotionally overwhelmed by the reaction at that set, and that was kind of like, that was another benchmark for me personally.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah, I would say like Ozfest was cool, and it definitely, I mean, that opened so many doors for us after the fact. it was a great summer, and I would put that up there as well. But the other two I think meant more. Like Ozfest was great. That to me, I never thought that was going to be a possibility for us. Like I really, you know, we're playing 300 to 500 cap rooms. I'm good with that. And yeah, Ozfest kind of helped it, so we weren't just playing that size room. Well, we probably still were, but whatever.
Sure.
But yeah,
Your prism was able to open up a little bit more when you're just like, I guess we can, as cheesy as it sounds, dream bigger like that.
mhm.
We never even thought we would be here, let alone, here.
No, and yeah, the whole thing. I mean, but that tour we did with you guys, that was, and everybody was so great on that tour too. Like everybody was so just excellent to one another, and it's still, like I said, to this day, it's one of my fondest memories. And that was a very difficult summer because we had like 2 other failures of tours leading into that one. And that one I was like, by today's standards, probably was pretty unsuccessful in certain areas. But I remember being like, well, this is a great tour. Like all, yeah. So
Yeah, no, it's that tour. Yeah, it always sticks out to me as well because it was like it's the literal mixed bill that everybody wants. Where it's like you got 2 heavy bands, you got 2 light bands, everyone plays together well, everyone's audiences come. It's like, yeah, it works as everybody like tries to conceive these ideas in the music industry where it's like, let's make this perfect tour, and this one just like happened by every band falling into a random booking agent from Virginia Beach. It's like, no. None of this should happen, but it did.
I did not believe that it was a real person for the longest time, that agent.
Same.
And I won't get too deep into that conversation, but like I was like, either we're being set up or this is going to be a really great summer. Like,
dude, for sure. I think all of us showing up for the first date was kind of like, well, we'll see how this goes. So kind of hitting that, that point where you were experiencing the things that obviously you'd never intended to nor ever expected. And then, like you said, the, attention that starts getting paid to not only the band, but then you personally trying to kind of balance like your introspective human being nature and being like, I have to be on for like 20 some odd hours a day or whatever, surrounded by people. When did you notice, I guess, the wear and tear on you, being like, is this something I really want to keep continuing doing? I mean, I know you obviously departed the band, but like, was it well before that or was it pretty like close to that?
I mean, that's pretty much,
Okay.
That's really why. I mean, I by the point I left the band, that final tour I did, I pretty much knew a week into it. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I had conversations internally with the guys, or at least, 1 or 2 of them said, saying it. Like, it's just, I don't know. I was very unhappy. I did not take very good care of myself. And it all just caught up to me. And I think, yeah, to your point, like just being so out of my comfort zone constantly, I didn't handle it well. And so I would either be super angry all the time or just hiding, and so it was like, I think that was when I kind of figured all that out. Just for the most part, I really like, I loved touring. I loved doing all that stuff. And, but it was like the circumstances around that tour, the people who were handling our business, that's not a shot at Trustkill. People always think I'm taking shots at Trustkill. But the people who were handling our business, I don't think really had our best interests in mind. And so we didn't really say no to anything in terms of like scheduling and you have to do X, Y, and Z for this, if it's a vendor or, whatever the case is. And it just got burned out, and just was done with it. And so, yeah, so I started a new band because that's right. What you do when you're sick of being in a band is you immediately start another band.
Right. You pause for zero point 0.4 seconds, and then you're like, I guess I'm going to do the thing that was doing previously, but it's a whole new thing now.
Yeah, it was really dumb.
Well, I think it's such a common thing that happens because you are so like, you're like, okay, maybe if I do this, for lack of a better term, the right way, because I'm learning from past mistakes or learning how to handle myself. You're like, I can do this better. And it's like sometimes, the joke of like, oh yeah, when you run away from everything else, like you're still there. Like you got to figure yourself out too in the process.
Yeah, I didn't do any of that. I didn't do any of the work, as as people say. I didn't do any of it. I started another band as an excuse to hang out with my friends that drank a lot, and that's what we did. We moved into a house, and we're not productive, and we're not successful, and had a lot of squandered opportunities, and we did the same thing. So,
Yeah,
but it was fun. So I'll say that.
of course. Right. Yeah. And how did you kind of cope with the sort of identity shifts that one has to make when going from being, the dude in the band and then transitioning to, real life, which, most of us occupy. And sometimes there is that difficulty in kind of being like, well, I don't have to load in anywhere or whatever. Like, oh, I have to show up for work now. Like I have to be dependable. How did you kind of transition into real life? Was it a bumpy road, or was it a welcome change where you could count on something?
Yeah, no, it was pretty bumpy. If I'm being honest,
Okay.
I did not adjust very well. It took years, and I don't know. It took me a couple of years to kind of figure it out, and like I went back and had every intention of going to school and like getting a college degree, and like I said, I started another band and focused on that, and then my savings ran out, and so I had to find a job, and got a job working at the warehouse in Best Buy because I had no people skills. So it was like I can unload trucks. And so I did that for a while. And at a certain point, I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I should, like, if I'm going to focus on whatever it is, if it's working there or if it's, going to school, like, I finally kind of just like put it all together and just said, focus on what you want to do and don't worry about the band stuff. But yeah, it was humbling, man. Like I'd be stocking at Dice Today CDs and stuff, like, and it was like in that moment, like, well, this is wonderful. Here I am, and I'm not slighting Best Buy, but
Sure.
yeah, it's just it was a humbling experience. But I eventually kind of figured out a direction, and went to school, got my degree, and continued to work, and that was it. So
Sure. And it seems too that because a lot of times when people transition away from being in that full-time touring band and they become whether it's jaded, not jaded towards anything in particular, but just like, oh, like I don't pay attention to hardcore or punk anymore. It's like I don't have the space in my brain to care about it or whatever. But it seems like you had to always still retain the love for it as you were, going about your day or what have you. What keeps you firmly connected to it to the point where now the fact that you can obviously be in a band in a more manageable existence, that you're not just, you probably don't feel like a tourist, you're just like, oh yeah, these are all my friends. Like we're here.
Yeah, I don't know. Something has always just, I've always like kind of been interested in it after the fact. Even when I said I wasn't, I was still listening to, hardcore bands and stuff. But I just, when I think about the things in my life that have truly made me happy, there's like a constant with punk, hardcore, heavy music, and that's always been there, and it's always made me feel a specific way, and it's generally pretty good. And so I just, especially now, like there's such an abundance of good stuff out there. There's so much good music. There's so many good bands, and it's fun for me. It's fun for me to like do the research and figure out what's making this band tick and what's the story with them. How do they get together? And you know, it'd be that through podcasts or just reading bios, reading record sleeves. It's always something that's made me feel good. So I think that's just, it's a really simple answer. Like, I've always enjoyed it. I've always loved it. And it's always made me just feel good. And there's not too many things in life that do. That list is short. So it's like, I've just always made a point of kind of trying to stay connected. You know, I'm not saying I've gone to every show, because I didn't for a long time, and go shows. But I've always kind of been in the background, like listening, appreciating, and all that. So,
right. The last few things I wanted to hit on was the fact that you not only felt comfortable enough to like step back into the It Dies Today shoes. I mean, would I put you on a list of like, the bands that I would think would come back? Like, it would maybe be higher on the list, but I don't think I never had in my own brain like, I'll be seeing It Dies Today in the year of our Lord 2024 or whatever. What circumstances made you feel, I guess, comfortable to step back into it, to not feel like it was this just like whatever walking cliche of just like, here's the old version of ourselves now, and we're just going to be, a karaoke band or whatever. What kind of led you to be comfortable with the decision that you made?
I think, I mean, realistically, it was just the opportunities that we're being presented with. Furnace Fest was really an incredible experience. Working with that whole team over there that books the festival, it was amazing. Everybody's super great. And the show, we were having really bad technical difficulties the day of the show, and it was like, when you're trying to do something for the first time in front of that many people, it gets a little rattling. But ultimately, the show was insane. It was awesome. And it was good to just hang out with the guys and be in a room and playing music again, truthfully. And with the way things have changed so much since 2020, I don't work in an office, and I have, I don't know, I'm trying this slippery slope, but I had a good job. I was lucky. I had time. I had time to do it, and it just all kind of made sense. And like I said, the most important thing was like, it felt good getting back with those guys and chopping it up and kind of hanging out. So
sure, yeah, it's like I like to say sometimes, like, it's difficult until it's not, and then sometimes it's like just this pure timing where it's like, now this is easy. Like, sure, let's try it.
Yeah, exactly. And I just lost the point I was going to make. Oh, yeah. No, to your point, though, like, it is funny to me to see, like, to read comments or hear things like, you're just a bunch of old dads playing washed metalcore. Yeah, dude. That's like, that's exactly what I am. Like,
yeah, that's not an insult, bro.
Yeah, like, come on. Or like, yeah, that's exactly what I am. My kids are embarrassed, and that's fine. But like, I'm not going to get up there and like pretend it's still 2004 and like, that's not me, So it is funny that I hear those comments or see them and just be like, yeah, man, it's not an insult to me at this point. Like,
right. I embrace it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of on that similar topic, the doing the new slash old friends but new band. What was it? Just a matter of being like, hey, I want to have something kind of not directly attached to the things that I previously did, and just be like, I want to be a more straightforward approach to a hardcore band or whatever. What inspired you to obviously put that together?
It's so it's kind of a dumb story. We were really dumb story. We're not sharing on a podcast. My wife and I were watching the show Fargo, and there was a character named Danish Graves, and I said, "Be a great hardcore band name, Danish Graves."
Sure.
And so I just like kind of floated it out into the universe. Like, anybody want to start a band with me called this? And that was it. And I had John, who was a friend at the time. He wasn't playing for It Dies Today at the time. He reached out. He's like, I'll play drums. I'm like, okay. And then Mike shortly thereafter was like, hey, do you have a guitar player yet? I said, no. He's like, what's it going to sound like? And I said, this, and sent him like riffs. He's like, that's cool. Let's do it. And Greg, we've known, I think since he was like 12. So like Greg, we've known Greg forever. He's an awesome dude. And then he joined and was just like, I'm good with this, but we're not keeping the name. So Danish Graves was no more. I think I'm going to sneak it in as a song title though. And we'll see. But yeah, it really just came about because I wanted to play in a hardcore band. And I say I'm not a good guitar player because I'm not good enough to play for people, but I'm good enough to write riffs and show those riffs to people who are really competent players. And so that's what we've been doing. And it went from like, I wrote the first song, demoed it with Mike, shared it with everybody. Everybody was into it. And then it became like really collaborative and cool, and our personalities all meshed. Like, I know Mike and John, well from doing that It Does Today stuff, but Greg was a perfect addition. And so everybody we just get in a room when we can, we write, and it's just a lot of fun. And it's like kind of just, we did it because we love it, and that's it. And there was no other ambitions behind it other than like, let's get in a room and maybe put something out, and if anybody cares, cool. Like, that's really it.
There you have it. That was Nick Brooks, the vocalist from It Dies Today and Frozen Ground. And I love him. It was great to catch up with him and just bop around his brain, because that's what we do here. Anyways, next week, I have a great conversation with a band that I only recently started to get pulled into, Luke Bentham from The Dirty Nil. He's the vocalist for the band, and it took me a while. It wasn't until their most recent record, Fuck Art, that the band kind of congealed in my brain. And their new record that I've spent a ton of time listening to is coming out soon. And I was like, you know what? Luke seems like a real fun hang and a good chat. And boy, did he not disappoint. So we're going over the border from Buffalo and It Dies Today to Luke from The Dirty Nil, who's located in the greater Toronto area. But anyways, that's what we got next week. Until then, please be safe, everybody.